Ladies and gentlemen, life as we know it is a complex tapestry of joys, sorrows, ambitions, and uncertainties. We chase countless things: success, relationships, security, yet so often we feel adrift, as if something vital is missing. Today I invite you to consider a profound yet simple truth: putting God first changes everything. Imagine for a moment that life is like a symphony. Each of us plays an instrument, our unique gifts, roles, and responsibilities. But what happens when the conductor is ignored? The music becomes chaotic, no longer harmonious. Putting God first is like listening to the conductor's guidance. It aligns us with the greater rhythm of life, ensuring that every note we play contributes to a masterpiece. When we say put God first, we are not simply prioritizing a higher power, we are aligning ourselves with the source of all wisdom, love, and purpose. This act is not about rules or rituals. It is about recognition, seeing the divine not as an abstract concept, but as the stillness at the heart of the storm, the seed from which all growth begins. Yet many resist this idea. Why put God first? They ask, I can handle life on my own, but consider this: a tree without roots may stand tall for a time, but it cannot weather the storm. In the same way, a life not rooted in the divine may appear successful, but it lacks the foundation to endure life's trials. Putting God first is not a sacrifice but a liberation. It frees us from the illusion of control, reminding us that our role is not to steer the universe but to flow with its current. It is not a renunciation of joy, but an invitation to deeper joy, a joy that does not fade with circumstances because it stems from an eternal source. When God comes first, everything else falls into place. Relationships grow richer, for we learn to love as God loves. Work becomes meaningful, for we see it as service rather than mere survival. Even challenges become stepping stones, for we trust the divine purpose behind every struggle. This is not theory, it is lived experience. Those who put God first discover that what seemed like loss is gain, what felt like burden is blessing, and what appeared as chaos is, in fact, a divine dance. So today I urge you, put God first. Let this be the starting point of every decision, the anchor in every storm, and the light in every shadow. For when God is first, life is not just lived, it is fulfilled. Imagine a circle, perfect in its form, infinite in its potential. The boundary, the circumference, represents all the possibilities of life: relationships, ambitions, successes, joys, and even struggles. It is vast, encompassing all that we see and all that we strive for. But at its heart lies the center, the single point from which all radii extend and through which the entire circle finds its meaning. Without the center, the circle is no longer a circle, it becomes a meaningless collection of disconnected fragments. So it is with life when we fail to put God at the center. To put God first is not merely to prioritize one thing among many, it is to recognize the source and essence of everything else. God is not just a part of the circle, not just another piece of the puzzle. God is the point from which all things originate and toward which all things return. By acknowledging this central truth, we give structure and purpose to our lives. Without it, we risk wandering aimlessly, chasing pieces of the circumference without ever understanding their connection to the whole. Life often tempts us to focus on the outer edges of the circle. We become consumed with pursuits: wealth, recognition, security, believing these will bring us fulfillment. And yet, the more we chase these things, the more disconnected we feel. Why? Because we have neglected the center. Like trying to balance a wheel without a hub, we find ourselves spinning out of control, our energy dissipating without direction. Putting God first means coming back to the center, grounding ourselves in the source of all things, and allowing that still point to guide us. When God is at the center of your life, everything else begins to align. Decisions which once felt overwhelming become clearer because they are anchored in a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Relationships, often fraught with misunderstandings and selfishness, are transformed as you begin to love others, not for what they can give you, but because they, too, are part of the divine circle. Even challenges take on a new dimension. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, you see them as opportunities for growth, as part of a larger design that flows from the center outward. This alignment does not mean life becomes free of struggle. The storms of existence will still come, the winds will still blow. But when your life is centered on God, you find a stillness that cannot be shaken. Just as the eye of a hurricane remains calm while chaos swirls around it, so does the soul rooted in the divine find peace even in the midst of turmoil. This is not a peace that comes from avoiding challenges, but a peace that arises from knowing you are connected to something eternal, something unchanging. To put God first is to acknowledge a profound reality: you are not the center of the circle. None of us are. Our egos resist this truth, clinging to the illusion that we can control the circumference, that we can dictate the shape of our lives. But the moment we let go of this illusion, the moment we surrender to the true center, we experience a freedom we could never have imagined. This freedom is not about doing less or caring less, it is about doing everything with a greater sense of purpose and trust. When you live with God at the center, the circumference of your life expands. You begin to see connections you never noticed before, patterns of grace and meaning that were hidden when you were focused only on the surface. The world, once fragmented and confusing, begins to reveal its wholeness, its harmony. And you realize that the center was never far from you. It was always there, waiting for you to return. So let your life be like the perfect circle, defined not by its edges, but by its center. Put God first, and everything else will find its rightful place. Life is often compared to a journey, a battle, or even a test. But perhaps its most profound metaphor is that of a dance. In a dance there is rhythm, movement, connection, and flow. Each step has meaning, yet no step is isolated from the whole. The beauty of the dance comes not from perfection, but from participation, from surrendering to the music and allowing it to guide you. In the same way, putting God first is about recognizing that life is not random chaos, but a divine choreography, one where God is both the composer and the lead partner. When we see life as a dance, it changes how we approach everything. Dancing is not something you do mechanically or begrudgingly, it is something you feel, something you experience. But here's the key to truly dance: you must follow the rhythm. And that rhythm is God. Without it, your movements are disconnected, awkward, and aimless. You may try to create your own rhythm, but it will always feel hollow, out of sync with the greater flow of life. By putting God first, you align yourself with the divine beat, allowing your steps to blend seamlessly with the music of existence. This dance is not one you perform alone. God is your partner, always leading, always guiding. Yet, as in any dance, the lead is gentle, never forceful. You are invited to follow, to trust the subtle cues, the nudges that guide you to move in harmony with the divine plan. But how often do we resist? How often do we try to take the lead, convinced that we know the steps better? The result is struggle, stepping on toes, missing the beat, and feeling the frustration of trying to control something that was never ours to control. Putting God first is not about giving up, it's about giving and yielding to the rhythm that was there all along. It's about realizing that the dance isn't about you alone, but about your connection to something greater. And when you surrender to this connection, the dance becomes effortless. The worries that weighed you down begin to fade as you trust the flow of the music. The steps you once feared take on a grace you never imagined. But life's dance is not always smooth. There are times when the music shifts, when the rhythm becomes complex, even dissonant. In these moments, it's easy to feel lost, to doubt the partner who once seemed so sure. Yet these are the moments that test your trust, your willingness to keep moving even when you can't anticipate the next step. When you put God first, you find that even in the most challenging parts of the dance, there is purpose. The twists and turns that feel confusing are often leading you to a place of greater beauty and depth. This dance is not about competition or comparison. Each of us is part of the grand choreography, and each dance is unique. Some move with dramatic flair, others with quiet grace, but all are essential, contributing to the larger masterpiece. When you put God first, you stop measuring your dance against others. Instead, you begin to see the beauty of the whole, the intricate patterns that only make sense when viewed as a collective. Putting God first also means recognizing that the dance is not just for you. It is an invitation to draw others into the rhythm, to extend a hand to those who feel out of sync and help them find their place. When you move in harmony with God, your life becomes a beacon, a living example of what it means to trust the rhythm and embrace the dance. At its heart, the dance of life is a celebration of creation, connection, and the infinite possibilities that unfold when we move in step with the divine. So let go of the need to control, the fear of missteps, and the doubt that keeps you from hearing the music. Put God first and let the dance carry you. In doing so, you will discover that the dance is not just something you do, it is who you are. Life is like a mirror, reflecting what stands before it. The quality of the reflection depends entirely on what we place in front of it. When we put our egos, fears, and fleeting desires at the forefront, the reflection becomes distorted, unclear, and fractured. But when we put God first, the mirror becomes a pure and clear surface, reflecting the divine essence within and around us. To put God first is to recognize that we are vessels for the sacred, and it is through us that divine light can be seen in the world. This idea may seem abstract, but consider what it means to truly reflect something. A mirror does not create its image, it simply receives and returns. Similarly, when we live in alignment with God, we do not need to generate perfection or prove our worth. Instead, we reflect God's love, wisdom, and peace, allowing these qualities to shine through us. It is not about striving to be something we are not, but about uncovering who we truly are, beings created in the image of God, capable of radiating divine light when we remove the obstructions. Yet the world often encourages us to cover this mirror with layers of false identity, success, possessions, and the endless pursuit of approval. These layers act like smudges, dulling the reflection and obscuring the truth of who we are. When we put God first, we begin to wipe away these layers, realizing that our value is not determined by external achievements, but by our connection to the divine source. The clearer the mirror, the more powerfully it reflects the light. This reflection is not just for our benefit. Just as a mirror brightens a room by amplifying the light it receives, we are meant to share the divine reflection with others. When you embody love, patience, kindness, and compassion, you reflect God's presence to those around you. Often people see the divine not through abstract concepts, but through the actions and presence of those who live with God at their center. Your life becomes a living testament, a mirror that shows others what is possible when they, too, align with the source of all goodness. However, reflecting the divine does not mean life will be without challenges. A mirror, no matter how polished, is still fragile. It can crack under pressure, and it can be clouded by the circumstances of life, pain, loss, and doubt. But even in those moments when the reflection seems imperfect, God's light remains constant. The cracks in the mirror do not diminish the light, they often create unique patterns, allowing the light to reach places it otherwise wouldn't. Our imperfections, when surrendered to God, become part of the divine story, showing that even brokenness can reflect beauty. Putting God first also means understanding that the reflection is not about us. The mirror's purpose is not to draw attention to itself, but to what it reflects. When we make life about our own ambitions, we block the light, making the reflection dim and self-centered. But when we step aside and let God take precedence, the mirror fulfills its purpose, becoming a conduit for something far greater than itself. This is not an act of losing oneself, it is an act of finding oneself in a larger, eternal context. To reflect God is to become a part of the divine cycle. The light we receive is not meant to stay with us, it flows through us to others, illuminating the path for those who may be walking in darkness. In this way, putting God first creates ripples far beyond what we can see. A single mirror, positioned to catch the light, can brighten an entire space, just as a single life aligned with God can impact countless others. Ultimately, the mirror of the divine is an invitation. It calls us to stop striving, to stop trying to control the image, and to simply be what we were created to be, reflections of God's boundless love and grace. When we put God first, the mirror clears and the world becomes brighter, not because we create the light, but because we allow it to shine through us. Life can be likened to a tree, with its branches stretching toward the sky, its leaves swaying in the wind, and its fruits providing nourishment. The tree is what we often focus on, its visible grandeur, its growth, and the value it brings. Yet none of this would exist without the seed. The seed, small and often overlooked, contains the essence of the entire tree. Without the seed, the tree has no foundation, no life. In the same way, putting God first is like planting the seed from which all the beauty, strength, and purpose of life emerge. At first glance, a seed appears insignificant. It is small, unassuming, and hidden beneath the soil. It doesn't command attention or demand immediate results. Yet within it lies the blueprint for something extraordinary. When you put God first, it is like planting this seed in the soil of your life. It may not seem to make an immediate difference, but beneath the surface, unseen to the eye, transformation begins. The seed takes root, drawing from the richness of its source, anchoring itself so that it can grow strong and endure. But for the seed to grow, it must be nurtured. It needs water, sunlight, and care. Putting God first is not a one-time act, it is a continual process of tending to that relationship. Prayer, faith, and reflection are the nourishment that allows the seed to sprout and thrive. Just as a gardener must trust in the unseen growth occurring beneath the soil, so must we trust in the unseen work of God within us. The results may not be immediate, but in time they will become evident. The tree that grows from the seed is not just for itself. Its branches provide shelter, its leaves give oxygen, and its fruits nourish others. When you put God first, your life becomes like that tree, rooted in divine purpose and bearing fruit that benefits those around you. Your actions, words, and presence become a source of encouragement and sustenance for others. The fruits of love, kindness, patience, and generosity are not born of your effort alone, they are the natural outcome of being connected to the source of all life. Yet, just as a tree faces seasons, so does life. There are times of growth, when the branches stretch wide, and times of pruning, when certain parts must be cut away to make room for new life. There are seasons of abundance, when the fruits are plentiful, and seasons of dormancy, when growth seems still. Through it all, the strength of the tree lies in its roots. When God is the seed from which your life grows, you are anchored, able to withstand the changing seasons and the storms that come. The seed also teaches us humility. No matter how grand the tree becomes, it cannot forget its origin. The tallest tree owes its existence to the smallest seed. In the same way, no matter how far we go in life, how much we achieve, or how much we grow, we must remember our source. Putting God first keeps us grounded, reminding us that all we have and all we are comes from the divine seed planted within us. A tree also gives back to the earth that nurtures it. Its fallen leaves enrich the soil, creating a cycle of life that benefits future growth. When we live with God at the center, our lives become part of a greater cycle. The blessings we receive are not meant to be hoarded but shared, enriching the world around us and planting seeds of faith, hope, and love in others. Ultimately, the seed and the tree remind us of the profound truth that small beginnings lead to great outcomes. Putting God first may seem like a simple act, but it has the power to transform not only your life, but the lives of those you touch. From the hidden seed comes the towering tree, and from a life rooted in God comes a legacy of grace, strength, and abundance. Let your life grow from this divine seed, and watch as it becomes a tree that stands tall, bears fruit, and blesses the world. Life often feels like a storm, chaotic and unpredictable, with moments of calm quickly replaced by turbulence. The winds of change, the rain of hardship, and the thunder of uncertainty can leave us feeling overwhelmed, as though we are caught in forces beyond our control. Yet within every storm there exists a stillness, a quiet center that remains untouched by the chaos swirling around it. This stillness is where God resides, and putting God first allows us to access this peace, even in the most challenging times. The storm represents life's struggles, loss, failure, fear, and the relentless demands of daily existence. These moments can feel all-consuming, making it difficult to find direction or solace. We often respond by trying to fight the storm, exerting control over what cannot be controlled. This resistance leaves us exhausted, disconnected from the deeper truth that the storm is not the whole of reality. Beneath the noise, there is a stillness, a presence that anchors us no matter how fierce the winds become. Putting God first means choosing to seek that stillness. It is not about escaping the storm or pretending it does not exist, but about finding a grounding point that keeps us steady. This is not a physical stillness, but an inner peace, a sense of trust that flows from knowing God is in control. When we make God our priority, we align ourselves with the eternal calm that nothing in this world can shake. The storm may rage around us, but it cannot disturb the quiet within. This inner stillness does not come from understanding or solving every problem, it comes from surrender. It is the realization that we are not meant to navigate the storm alone. God, as the creator of the storm and the calm, invites us to rest in His presence, to let go of the need to control and simply trust. In that trust we find clarity. The noise of the storm begins to fade, and we hear the gentle voice of guidance reminding us that we are not abandoned, that every storm serves a purpose. When we embrace this stillness, our perspective changes. The storm, which once seemed threatening, becomes a teacher. It tests our faith, strengthens our character, and deepens our connection to God. It reminds us of the limits of our power and the boundlessness of God's. And when the storm passes, as all storms eventually do, we emerge not just unharmed, but transformed, more rooted in the stillness we found within. This peace is not just for ourselves. When we live with God at the center, the stillness we carry becomes a refuge for others. Our calm amidst chaos inspires hope. Our faith amidst uncertainty encourages trust, and our presence becomes a reminder that stillness is always available, no matter the storm. The storms of life are inevitable, but they do not have to define us. By putting God first, we find the stillness behind the storm, a stillness that empowers us to endure, to grow, and to live with unwavering peace. Life can feel like a vast and unpredictable game, full of rules we don't fully understand, challenges we didn't choose, and outcomes that seem beyond our control. We move through this game seeking purpose, trying to win in ways the world defines through success, recognition, or personal fulfillment. Yet the deeper truth is that life's ultimate goal is not about mastering the game itself, but about recognizing the one who designed it. When we put God first, we see the game for what it truly is, a divine invitation to grow, connect, and fulfill a purpose far greater than ourselves. In every game, players have a choice. They can focus solely on their individual achievements, striving for victory at all costs, or they can embrace the deeper lessons and connections the game offers. Life is no different. Without God at the center, we often become consumed by competition, comparing ourselves to others, chasing temporary rewards and fearing failure. This approach makes the game feel exhausting, as if we are endlessly chasing goals that never truly satisfy. Putting God first changes everything. It shifts our focus from playing for fleeting victories to living with eternal purpose. God becomes our guide, showing us that the game is not about accumulating points, but about the journey itself, how we treat others, how we grow through challenges, and how we reflect His love in all we do. The rules of this divine game are not written to constrain us, but to lead us toward a life of fulfillment and meaning. Challenges, setbacks, and even failures are an inevitable part of the game. They can feel like obstacles meant to hinder us, but when we put God first, we begin to see them differently. Each trial becomes an opportunity to grow in faith, patience, and resilience. The difficulties we face are not punishments, but lessons designed to shape us into the people we were created to be. Just as a game's challenges test a player's skills, life's trials test and strengthen our character. Putting God first also reminds us that we are not playing alone. Life is not a solitary game, but a communal one, where our actions affect those around us. When we live with God at the center, we stop seeing others as competitors and start seeing them as fellow players, each with their own unique role and journey. We are called to support, uplift, and encourage one another, building relationships that reflect the love and unity God intended. Ultimately, the game of life is not about winning in the traditional sense. The true victory comes in aligning ourselves with God's purpose in living a life of faith, love, and service. When we put God first, we discover that the game's greatest reward is not found in what we achieve, but in who we become. In trusting the divine plan, we experience a peace and joy that transcends any earthly prize. Life's game is complex, but its essence is simple: put God first, and everything else falls into place.